welcome to Is My Friend a Terrorist? Panel presentation at Richland College. The Muslim Student Association graciously provided the panelists. I'm going to moderate this as a sociologist and try to examine an issue in a scholarly way, as there appears to be a problem of discrimination given current events these days. So one starting point to try to understand this discrimination and prejudice is to actually, let's meet some of the targeted minority group and maybe do a little contact theory hypothesis, meaning get some familiarity with
There's an H at the
the
end.
group. We will not view our guests as theologians, and we'll try to minimize the theology and religion here. Some of it may necessarily have to be discussed. But we value them as students at Richland, and they have real experiences being a Muslim in the U.S. and in Texas. So today's discussion will be more about experiences rather than information, which can be attained elsewhere. And their experiences may not reflect all Muslims. We will examine Muslims, not Islam. Panelists should preface their answers with, my experiences is that kind of thing. So hopefully this discussion will facilitate a critical analysis. Yes?
Project my voice a little more so that
Okay.
folks in the back can hear, unless there's some microphones.
Yeah, thanks. It sounds loud to me, but I guess it's not traveling. All right, the panelists will have to keep that in mind. We can't generalize these few samples to a larger population, but this qualitative inductive approach can raise research questions and develop theory. So I'll start with some introductory questions with the panelists, and then we can take some questions as we go along.
He addresses separately.
And we'll go for 1 hour, and then you can meet them after we're done if you want. Or you can contact the Muslim Student Association here at Richland. So can each of you, you already got the names? Explain quickly your background, maybe family, ethnic background, and your career path. Lena?
Okay, I'm Lena Mohammed. I'm an RCHS student, senior. My family's originally from Ethiopia. We come from a very diverse background, and religion played a huge role in my upbringing, I guess, pretty much. And I'm trying to major in becoming a psychologist.
Okay. My name is Hiba. I'm from Dallas, but my parents are from. I'm from Dallas, but my parents are from India, and just like her, religion did play a major role in the way that I was raised. And I want to major in computer science, but I plan to join the FBI and in that field. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. My name is Rita. I'm a junior. I'm a dual credit student at Richland. I was born and raised in New Jersey, and my parents are originally from India. I want to major in chemical engineering.
My name is Amna. I'm half Indian, half Pakistani. I am a senior dual credit student, and I want to be a lawyer.
My name is Sharif. I am a senior in the RCHS here. I want to be a mechanical engineer, and my family for many generations have been Chinese Muslims, and I grew up here in Plano, Texas.
Thank you. So I'm sure everyone has heard about recent events that put a spotlight on Muslims. Have you felt any of this heat from society because of these recent events?
We really can't hear y'all in the back, so if y'all, when you speak, could you pass this around? I'll try to get some other ones turned on too.
Okay, so do you want me to? You can go.
So if you say like repercussions, I would say here at Richland, not necessarily, not specifically. The Richland community is pretty understanding about these events, and I haven't seen a lot of major repercussions directed towards me or any of my friends here at Richland. Anything that I've seen has mainly been in the media. You know, when you turn on the news these past few days, you just see constant news feed about this and constant debating over this subject. At least for me personally, in my experience, that's all I've seen so far.
Anyone else?
Just like, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Is that a bit too loud? Yes. Okay. Just like Sharif mentioned, I found the Richland community to be very open-minded and accepting as well. I have received a few like glares at grocery stores and stuff, but that's kind of normal. Kind of like something I deal with on an everyday basis, so it's not really different, to be honest.
And we'll talk about these daily microaggressions in a minute. Anyone else have comments on the latest news?
I mean, like, it's nothing like different than like it was before. I mean, like Sharif said, the news has been focusing a lot, and a lot like the people like who specifically like in Islamophobes and Islamophobia, they've been using this a lot. But like, it's nothing personal has happened yet to me after the event.
I'm going to ask some stupid questions here, because they seem to reflect probably a lot of what you already get. Do people question you, your American patriotism at all?
Should I? Well, not personally, but like in Facebook commenting stuff, like anyone who defends Muslims or anything like that is automatically called unpatriotic. Which is like, I mean, you do come across things like go back to your country and stuff like that, but it's like kind of like that.
I would like to add to what Hiba said, that I have had people tell me to go back to my country, but what's really unfortunate is that I consider America to be my country. Like when we go to India, I don't feel Indian. Like I feel a foreigner there. I'm gonna be honest. Like I get made fun of because I have an accent. Anyway, I don't really fit in. I feel more American than Indian. And then when someone tells me to go back to my country, for me it's like, this is my country. This is where I was born. This is where I'm going to die. So like, where do I go?
Do we have any questions so far? Yeah, sometimes people will say, go back to Islam or wherever you came from. In your experience, is Islam much different than Christianity? Anyone?
In my experience, on a foundational level, the very core of the religion, I would say no. Both religions are Abrahamic religions. You know, I'm not going into the deep theology, but you know, just looking at even the morals that each religion teach. You know, what's right and what's wrong. You know, do not steal, do not lie. You know, do not kill. These basic principles and the morals that these two religions teach, you know, both aim to make better human beings that are beneficial to society. The differences lie in the belief systems. Obviously, there are differences there, but you know, just on an interaction basis between Muslims and Christians, you know, just basic ideals of what is right and what is wrong remain the same to me, in my experience.
And so, like whenever I had discussions with my non-Muslim friends and whatnot, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is similar. For example, prophetic stories, all these things. I mean, a lot of the details, like maybe a few details here and there, but the essence of the story is similar. Prophets, just in general, all those things are repetitive and whatnot.
So where do you think some people get the notion that Islam equals terrorism. And don't say, I don't know. I mean, can you make a hypothesis?
I don't know. It's possibly the fact that ISIS is called the Islamic State, and they literally use Islam in the name to justify or excuse their acts of terror, and like their name literally has Islamic in it, so people always associate that with it, and like whenever like they always claim to do things in the name of Islam, so that could be yours. Yeah.
The radicals for Islam, like what's different than just like a normal Islamic approach to like what is about their religion for them is so radical that they have so many.
Well, for one thing, they cherry pick things from the Quran. They'll take like one sentence in there that's out of context and use that to, I don't know if it's to justify their actions or to use it as an excuse, or they don't read the entire Quran. They'll just use that one sentence and build everything that they do based upon that, which isn't even in the context that they're doing it in.
And it's just so unfortunate that their actions are on such a large magnitude and so tremendously horrible that is what is covered about Islam. That you don't hear about in the news about the daily interactions of Muslims. That's what you hear about, and that's why these two words have been associated so closely in recent times. But I was looking, even a reporter who was held hostage by ISIS for 10 months. Upon coming back, he reported that they didn't even have a Quran. That the whole time he was there, he didn't even see this book there. So these terrorist groups, they're acting by their own desires, but just under the guise of Islam, and that's why it's being represented like this.
So is there anything in your experience with your upbringing in religion that directs you to reject either Christianity or the dominant majority here, or to reject the basic norms, values, and beliefs in the U.S.?
Okay. I grew up, my mom always taught me to love thy neighbor, and I know everybody's familiar with that saying, to love your neighbors. And growing up, I was told to respect everybody's religion, regardless what their background is from. And from that, I think Islam teaches that. That's really what the core belief of Islam is, to treat everybody the same way. No one is wrong. You can't judge one person. Again, God is the only judge, and you can't say, hey, that person doesn't have the same belief as me, so I should not see them as equal or as human. I think it's just the way we're brought up. I think that is what Islam teaches.
Do you feel it's your duty to convert them?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, we were always taught have good manners to represent Islam properly, but it's never there's you don't go to them and be like, do you want to convert to Islam? You just you show good manners so that they themselves want to know more. That's kind of what I was taught growing up.
Any questions so far? Yes.
So I just passed by the media room, and it was on CNN, and it just said that Texas is actually one that's not receiving any refugees that are Muslim.
I'll repeat your question. So Texas is not receiving refugees, and they are probably not qualified to answer this. They may know, but I want to keep credentials.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel? Because the media is basically saying, hey, we shouldn't have these people here. So how do you feel about that?
It definitely saddens me, for sure. I'm not saying that, Texas has made a wrong decision or anything. Obviously, their decision in deciding this has basis in it. They have their reasons, but to me, it's just sad that we've gotten to this point where it's hard for us to help those who need help. It's hard for us to do the right thing, but we will still try. You know, even as students, we can make a difference. We can, you know, try our best to help the refugees, you know, in Europe who need help in the best way we can, whether that's, you know, doing our own fundraisers, attending fundraisers, trying to raise money and support and awareness for them. We'll continue to try. And just because we may not be able to accept them in this land right here doesn't mean we will stop caring about them. And we will try to continue and try to make their lives better as much as possible.
I've been working with refugees actually for 2 years now, and particularly with the Syrian refugees. And I've seen that with them, I've been really inspired. They inspired me to go out and do the extra mile. And I feel like we need to take another step. We can't just be on our Facebook saying, oh, this is so sad, this is a shame. We need to go take that extra mile. And with that, I've decided I'm in the process right now of proposing a bill to the Congress in order to open up the borders for more Syrian refugees to come in. The fact that now I'm hearing that we're not letting in any more is kind of sad, because Dallas is known for being the biggest carrier of refugees. It's pretty sad, but I think we need to take an action, and we need to do something about that, because it shouldn't be like that. These are people who are leaving their homes, they're dying, and they don't have any other place to go, and we can't just leave innocent people just dying. And UN actually said 50% of these people are kids. These are children. So imagine these kids being your children. Would you want them to just be left alone, stranded, no home, no place to call home? So I see it like that. And I think that's how everybody should see it as.
And when I was also reading about this, it came to me that our country was built on people who were running away from the same thing that these people are running away from: religious persecution or any form of persecution. And the fact that America, the country that thrives on diversity, and it's like the land of the free and the opportunity, is doing this to people who are trying to run away from this is just, you know.
By the way, do you know which country has the greatest number of Muslims?
Indonesia.
Yeah, Indonesia. Oh. Yeah, you know. Yeah, Indonesia. 67% of Muslims are Asian. What does it take to be a Muslim? I mean, how is it a secret club, or can what are the requirements, or how did you all become Muslim?
I mean, to be Muslim, you only have to say, you just have to have, it's called a shahada. You just have to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. It just means there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. And so that's basically, and then, you know, there's 5 fundamental things for being Muslim, which is like praying 5 times a day, giving charity, fulfilling the obligatory pilgrimage to Mecca, fasting Ramadan, and there's one other thing, I can't remember.
That's it.
Oh, shahada. And so honestly, in essence, if you just believe in Allah and you say that Muhammad is his messenger, then that makes you Muslim.
So is Allah the same as anyone else's God?
Allah, that's the Arabic word for God.
It is. This is the Arabic
The one
word.
God.
So God is Allah.
Yeah, the question that you asked about is Allah like any other God. Basically, the word Allah comes from 2 Arabic words, al and ilah. And al means the, ilah means God. So when you literally translate Allah, it means the God. So we basically believe in the same God as all other monotheistic religions.
You believe in Jesus?
Yes, we do believe in Jesus, peace be upon him. We believe that he was a prophet of God, and he was sent down to earth to spread his message, God's message.
In your belief, is he the Son of God?
No.
Or is he strictly a prophet?
No, we don't believe that Jesus, peace be upon him, is the Son of God, because we don't believe in associating any partners with God. We strictly believe that he was a prophet sent by God to spread his message.
So is there anything in your religion that says that if you do not believe in your God, then there's like something that you gotta go through, like say for instance in Christianity, you gotta go to hell. So is there something like that in Muslim religion?
Sharif can answer.
I would say definitely the afterlife in Islam and who ends up where is not even something that us Muslims can say to other Muslims. Just because you are a Muslim does not mean you're guaranteed to go to heaven, and just because you're not Muslim does not mean you're guaranteed to go to hell. As Muslims, we're taught not to judge people. Only God, we believe that only God knows a person by their amount of deeds, by what they do. And only God can know that. So I can't go out and judge a person whether they be Muslim, non-Muslim. I leave that up to God, and that's between the person and God. Obviously, in Islam you have to believe in God to go to heaven, and that's one of the requirements. But I mean, what's inside a person's heart as humans on earth right now, I can't say, and we shouldn't judge that.
But that's the ideal.
I'm saying, like, what does y'all religion, like, in y'all book, what is it called, Quran? What does it say? Like, is there, like, a repercussion for not believing it?
There is a hellfire, yeah. There is a hellfire. And for people who do not believe in God, yeah. But that's not restricted, if a person, even if a person is non-Muslim, they can go to heaven. But this is getting very theological, and I don't want to go too deep into it. But it really has to do what's in your heart, and God will judge you based on what's in your heart.
So that's, oh, thank you. Okay, good. So that's the ideal, but is everyone completely religious, have the same 100% religiosity as everyone else, or are there ranges of following?
I mean, I would say just like in any other religion, there's like different levels of like faith. So someone may claim to be a practicing Muslim and others may claim to be not so practicing Muslim. But I mean, I think in the end, it all just matters, it all just like goes down to what's in your heart and what you truly believe and your relationship with God.
Yes.
Women and men have the same rights in your religion. Do you consider you are behind men as a woman?
Well, in Islam, Islam gives women certain rights that are not guaranteed elsewhere. And like growing up, we are not taught that we are inferior to men in any way. But like, I mean, we are taught that men are like, certain men like our uncles or brothers or fathers are there to protect us from other men in a sense. But like, we're not taught that we're like inferior or anything like that. I mean, like not like to the extent that the misconceptions are showing.
Just kind of as at the risk of being a little theological here, can you explain the Prophet's wife, the first wife? What was her situation?
Oh, well, she was a first wife. She was actually a businesswoman. And so the fact that like many people would say that women should not work and stuff like that kind of goes against that in a way. And the second wife was, well, like the wives also like at that time rode camels and stuff. And nowadays, as you know, women can't drive in Saudi Arabia, but that's not anything religious. It's just that's how their country, that's their government, that's how their government is. It's nothing in Islam about that.
I just wanted to add to the whole women not being able to drive in Saudi by saying that it's really unfortunate when culture gets mixed with religion and is presented as religion. Like there's a lot of practices that we have that are cultural, but people claim that they're religious when they're really not. So there's like a clash between culture and religion sometimes. So like the whole people women not being able to drive in Saudi is a cultural thing and not a religious thing.
Speaking of the Saudi Arabia and women not being able to drive, isn't that based on because their government does follow the Islam as their law? And that is why, and also too, Saudi Arabia is viewed as, Mecca, and a lot of Muslims do follow. And just on a second question, which caliphate?
Sorry. Which what, sir?
Caliphate do you follow?
Well, we were actually discussing this just today. There is no country in the world today that follows proper Islamic Sharia or in any way. Like, there's absolutely no country that's completely Islamic. Saudi Arabia does enforce certain Islamic laws, but they also add their own certain things. And that driving part is from their own personal. It's not like it's their personal culture. It's not a religious thing.
And for second question, did we address?
Oh, yeah.
What caliphate?
Okay, sure. Speaking of your first question about Saudi Arabia following Islam, if Saudi Arabia really is an Islamic like country, why does it have a monarchy? We're not allowed, like, the Islamic government is not supposed to have a monarchy. Rule does not pass from father to son. It's based on merit. And your second question, which caliphate do we follow? I don't think there's any like caliphate as of right now. Like, after the Ottoman Empire, the caliphate kind of just like died out, I guess you could say.
But like in Islam, we are taught to follow the rules of your country. Like, you need to obey Islam and what Islam teaches, but you also have the responsibility to follow the rules and laws of your country.
Wait.
So what is the Quran's view of like husbands beating their wives?
Should I answer that?
Let's do that.
Is it too theological? Oh.
Well, in your
Okay.
opinion of it.
So
Okay.
even though a verse like that is mentioned in the Quran, we believe that the Quran is clarified through the actions of the Prophet Muhammad. And if you look at the lifetime of the Prophet, he never practiced that on his wives. That wasn't something that he did. So we are to follow that. Now, anytime he, made physical contact with his wife, it was more of a, not like a punishment sort of thing, It was more of like a playful tap. And if you read the text, it does talk about this, and you can go back and check. But in Islam, for men, clarified through the actions of the Prophet, we shouldn't do this. You understand? Through the Prophet's actions, we understand that this is not something that we should do because he never practiced it.
And even when it's mentioned in the Quran, it's not actual beating. It's like you said, just a playful tap, and that's like, that's not. People obviously misinterpret it or use it to justify their beatings or whatever, but like that's not what it says.
So we as scholars probably need to make the difference between what texts are interpreted as and actual behavior. So let me get.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
The verse that you mentioned, first of all, the Arabic language is very complicated. So when you translate it into simple English, it translates as like, beating your wife. But if you actually go down to like the root word and you analyze it, it's like Sharif and Hiba both said, like a playful tap or a gentle tap. And I'd also like to mention that right before that verse, a couple verses before, there's a verse that says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, which in English translates to, and live with them with kindness. So, it's like right before the part about beating your wife, which, again, like I said, when you translate Arabic into simple English, that's what it translates to, but if you actually analyze it, that's not really what it means.
There's actually a hadith, which is like a prophetic saying that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and he said, the best among men are those who are good to their wives. So it's something like that.
Ben.
Basing off the question one of the ladies asked earlier, what exactly is a caliphate? And I have another question on I've heard before on the Quran, is it ordered based off like when it was written, like the books, or is it ordered based off the size of the books? I've heard different things on this.
What does he mean by size?
Wait, can you repeat? I didn't understand the question.
What's the compilation length of Quran?
It's like by what order?
I've heard before that it's ordered based off size of the book and not on when it was written.
Yeah.
Is that true or?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question first. About the caliphate, A caliphate basically, it's kind of like a caliph is like a Muslim leader who practices Islam and basically is the leader of the Muslims with Islamic principles and values. We believe that after the Prophet, there were four, translated to English, rightly guided caliphs. That means they practiced Islam the correct way. That was Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, and Ali. Those were the four that came after that. Any other subsequent caliph or caliphate, we do not necessarily view it as a perfect or even correct caliphate. So any caliphate from then until now, we wouldn't really follow it, and the Muslim the Muslim Ummah, the whole worldwide Muslim community has not been united under a single, unanimous caliphate since then. Regarding your second question, I think you're saying how the Quran is arranged in each like chapters. So actually, both of your both points are correct. Technically, both. The Quran is roughly arranged in largest to smallest chapter, roughly. So the chapters near the end are very, very short. The chapters near the beginning are very, very long. Now, it is not in chronological order. The order of the...
I don't want to talk too much about this because it's a theological question,
Sure.
but...
It is not in chronological, but the order was arranged and after the Prophet's death, but it was arranged in the correct way from the teachings of the Prophet.
Do you practice it?
I don't know.
Hello. Do you like find yourself to be persecuted, if you have ever felt persecuted, by other religious people, like on a day-to-day basis, not by the media, by other religious people or by atheists? Which groups of people do you tend to find more persecution from? Not debating, but like feel personally offended.
Well, generally it would be from other religious groups because, well, like other religious groups, obviously, like they feel like their religion is the correct, but also, like, it'll also be like for atheists, but atheists won't generally do it to specifically to Islam. They'll do it to any religion in general. So I feel like it's more by other religious groups, but that's just my personal feeling.
I kind of had an aside here that you mentioned following a caliphate or some organization. Now, a religion like Catholicism has a hierarchy and leaders and spokespeople. Is there something equivalent, in your opinion, does Islam have a spokesperson, a hierarchy?
I would say as a whole, worldwide, now, no. There's just not one unanimously accepted person. Now, in Islam, we do, on a day-to-day basis, we follow and we seek the advice of people who have more knowledge than us. People who have studied the Quran, studied the Hadith, they understand it, they know the context in which verses are from, they've studied the history. These are the people who are usually the imams in our community, the resident scholars, teachers, and these are the people who, on a local basis, we would look to for leadership and guidance. But on a larger scale than that, if you go state, national, worldwide, there's usually not one person that we look to.
Do you think that can be the reason why there is no expected response from the Muslim community as far as condemnation of terrorism?
I mean, a lot of our Muslim leaders have condemned what happened in Paris on social media, specifically on Twitter. So we don't have like in Catholicism, I believe they have the Pope. We don't exactly have that because we believe after the Prophet, peace be upon him, no one else can really pass any judgment from God because only the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the one that received like direct revelation from God, and after him, no one else really has that connection to God. So there's not one spokesperson, but we have had imams in our the local Dallas community that have condemned what happened in Paris. And of course, what happened in Paris was really sad, and there's no way you can justify it. I would just like to add that what is sad as well is the fact that something similar happened in Lebanon, and ISIS took responsibility for that as well. And these were innocent civilians that were killed. These were people in cafes, shopkeepers that were killed. In Baghdad, I believe last week, around the same time, there was a suicide bombing at a funeral. So like there's people mourning over a loved one, and someone decides to, bomb that funeral. It's really upsetting. And but what's worse is that the media has focused so much on Paris, and that Lebanon and Baghdad, like Beirut specifically, and Baghdad haven't received any attention. And we had a hashtag trending on Twitter, hashtag pray for Paris, which I think Paris obviously needs our prayers, but there are other places around the world that need our prayers. So in the end, and this creates further resentment in people's minds. It's like, oh, so you think that our people are dying and we don't matter, but when something like this happens in Paris, everyone is praying for Paris, which obviously isn't wrong. Like, I'm not saying don't do that, but it's just that in India, when 600 people were killed over a matter of 2 days, no one said anything. Again, in India 2002, when 1,000 people were killed, more than 1,000 people were killed as a result of riots, there was no fury, there was no rage. So, I mean, how can we claim to care for all human lives when all this is going on around the world and it has received no media attention whatsoever?
Can I add something? Also, after the, just one small thing, after the Paris attack, people were like, it's terrorism against the West. But if people knew that the day before ISIS attacked Beirut, Lebanon, and Baghdad, it's not terrorists against the West. It's terrorists against everyone who isn't one, and that clearly explains it.
I don't want to try to put words in people's mouths, but I think maybe the point of the caliphate questions refers to something you hear a lot about in the media, and that is the Sunni-Shia split. And so I'd like to hear y'all's impressions of that conflict, because we hear Sunnis killing Shias every day and Shias killing Sunnis every day. So how do you respond to the issue of Muslims killing Muslims with types of different sects within Islam?
So without going into the really technical details, the split between Sunni and Shiites, it just comes from a foundational belief difference. Sunnis believe one thing, Shiites believe one thing foundationally. Now the core of it, they're both Muslims in that they believe in God and the Prophet. This fighting between Shia and Sunni, as a Muslim, I see it, and I'm very, very saddened by it, because we can't even be united as Muslims, and this fighting, it's been going on for forever, and it just comes down to a technical detail in the religion. You were mentioning a caliph. There's not really a representative of Sunnis, and another one for Shiites. At least not right now. But it's just the differences are more over a foundational difference in belief, and that's why they fight.
I'd just like to add one more thing to what Hiba said about terrorism versus the West. One of the first victims of ISIS were Muslims, and even now ISIS is so many of ISIS's victims are Muslims themselves. And another thing on the Sunni versus Shia thing, I think it's mostly power. What you see going on in Iraq and Iran, it's mostly for political power. It's greed. Honestly, it's not even, they're just using religion as a way to justify what they're doing. But honestly, it's just for political power. And the same thing with Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen. Saudi Arabia claims to be Sunni. Yemen is, they were going to have a Shiite government, which is why Saudi Arabia started bombing Yemen. Again, like I said, it's all political power, but they just use religious differences to justify that.
Question.
I was going to ask about how would the average American then learn about some of these things that happen, in Beirut or the bombings that happened in Yemen and different? How are we supposed to know about things like that? And I think that what you just said was the reason that all this fighting is happening in the first place is because of greed, and they're using the name of Islam, which is why we Americans think this is confusing, because all of this fighting is happening over there, and you're all Muslim, and they all claim to be under the rule of Islam. So it's very confusing.
You can go first and then I'll go after you. It's okay.
Well, a lot of major, probably the biggest role that plays in the misconception would be the media, the news. People found out about Paris through the news. I found out about Beirut and Baghdad through Facebook, through social media. There was nothing in the news that I saw about it. And so I know this is a bit more than like what we normally do, but like to actually find out like the whole story, we have to go out and actually find out. I mean, we can't rely on the media to tell us everything that's going on. If we really want to know what's going on in Beirut and Yemen and all that, we have to actually research it. I know it requires more, but like, I mean, CNN isn't going to tell us on it what's going on as much as they would tell us Paris or Fox News.
Here's a quick aside. Do you feel an obligation to defend or address terrorism? I mean, do you feel somewhat responsible? And many minority groups will feel like this. They feel under the pressure to defend or obligated to defend.
Well, after a lot of these terrorist attacks, many local Muslim leaders go out and apologize and condemn these actions. And yeah, it's true we condemn it, but ISIS has absolutely nothing got to do with us. So why are we always responsible for condemning them, for apologizing for them? KKK works in the name of Christianity. We don't see every single person out there apologizing for their actions. So why is it always that when a Muslim, like in this case, when like a Muslim does a terrorist attack, we have to apologize on behalf of them when we are responsible? It's we do it, but it's really frustrating that we have to.
It's kind of like when you're with your siblings and you're being blamed for something your sibling did, and it's like, what? That's basically what I feel like. Like, I do not support what happened in Paris at all. I condemn it. And do you know what the first thought that comes to my mind is when something like this happens?
Please don't be Muslim.
Yes, my sympathies go with the victims and their families. And my second thought is, I hope it's not a Muslim.
Like, after every, like...
Because then I feel that I am obliged to apologize for what happened. I have to take responsibility for everything that happened. And I have to go out and tell people, look, I am not out to kill you. I love you. And you know what? In the end, we all want the same thing. We all want a better world for ourselves and our future and our children.
And in my experience, the responsibility that I feel on a personal level is to portray Islam in the correct way. Because these terrorist groups are doing things and portraying Islam in complete wrong way, the responsibility that I feel is to portray it in the way that it truly is and in the correct way, whether that be just interacting with the people around me in the right way, telling my friends to, show the true Islam, show what Islam really means, the religion of peace, how it really is supposed to be carried out. That's the responsibility I feel, is to portray it in the correct way.
Oh.
I think you have to talk loud in there to turn it on.
It's probably dead.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, we've been talking about Muslims apologizing for things that other Muslims do. I wonder if you folks feel that France and the United States needs to apologize for destroying the Iraqi government and the Iraqi system, and for just trying to destroy the Syrian government, the Syrian system, after demolishing the Libyan government and killing thousands and thousands of people in a number of Middle Eastern countries. Is this something you think Western countries like France and the United States should be apologizing for?
This might be beyond the scope of our students here, but if you have a comment.
I do not believe that all Americans should be apologizing for what happened in Iraq or Syria or whatever. I think that the politicians responsible for what happened need to go out there, and if they are really sorry about it, they need to apologize. But all of us Americans are not responsible for what happened. many of us voted for the senators who voted against these things. So why should many Americans have to apologize for that? Just like that, many Muslims should not have to. It's like the same thing. It should be the people who are responsible apologizing for what they did. I mean, like, I don't think that George Bush represents all Americans or Dick Cheney represents all Americans, honestly speaking. So I think that, like, I mean, just an example. No, I'm just throwing a random example, random name that came to mind.
And you know, as individual people, you know, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, you know, I think we're putting too much focus on emphasizing what's wrong, what's bad. You know, we're constantly concerned about, you know, condemning the bad actions, focusing on what has gone wrong. I think instead we need to shift our focus. What can we do to make it right? You know, we know it's bad. We know it happened. You know, what can we now do? What can we now say? How can we now recognize the right thing to do in order to combat it? What are we doing to work against the bad thing to make it right?
Okay. A major argument is that Islamic society is medieval and incompatible with Western civilization. As Muslims in the West, do you believe Islam conflicts with Western values of freedom, liberty, and democracy? Can Muslims vote? Should Muslims partake in governments in the United States and Europe?
I don't think Islam really does contradict with what the West values. Can you be more specific on like Western values so I can answer that?
Freedom, liberty, and democracy.
Freedom, liberty, and democracy. Under Islam, like under an Islamic caliphate, people have, like, we're going to a governmental level right now. So under an Islamic caliphate, people have the right to believe in what they want to, and they cannot be forced to convert. There's actually a verse in the Quran about that there's no compulsion in religion. So, and as for Muslims voting, like in like regular elections, like American elections, right? I think, of course, they should, because these are the people that represent themselves. I think in today's society, the only way to have a voice in the government is through voting for your representatives. And we are taught to be of service to our community, so I don't think there could be any better way of being service to the community by being like a politician and, you know, advocating for laws that are of benefit to society.
Hey guys, so going back to your, like, how much pressure you feel from people, like non-Muslim people when you go like to grocery or whatever, because I am also a Muslim woman, but I have never worn a headscarf, so I never get those looks. Or when I tell people I'm Muslim, they're really surprised because I don't look like it. So has there ever been, like, the pressure that you feel, has it ever been so much that you have thought about removing your headscarf so you are not being associated with something so bad?
Well, for one thing, like, I've never, like, personally, like, no one has ever said something so, like, to me directly, but, like, honestly, for me personally, when I go out there with the headscarf on, I feel stronger because I feel like I'm like, people know I'm a Muslim, and I feel like I'm representing it, and, like, I mean, I recently only started wearing it, so it hasn't really come across to my head or anything like that, but, like, that's how I personally feel about the headscarf.
Rita?
Yeah.
I mean, since you wear a niqab, do you think you feel even more, I don't know.
Yeah, Hiba mentioned she has never had anyone say anything to her, but I actually get that quite often. I've had someone call me, I don't even think it would be appropriate to say here, an expletive terrorist. And I was 12, and I looked at him like, what? Like, I love you as much as I love my family. Like, you know, not in that way, of course. Honestly, like, I really didn't understand that. And I went home and told my parents, and they were like, why didn't you tell me? So that's why ever since that happened, I don't tell my parents anything, because I know they're going to create a scene, and I'm just like, I can handle this. I've had someone ask me if I was trying to run them over with a grocery cart, and I was like, I don't think that's possible, and I would not like to run you over. Like, I love you. Like, why would I want this for you, honestly? So I do get that a lot because of the niqab. I feel like it's something that people feel like I'm oppressed. I'm really not oppressed. A lot of people think my dad and brother forced me. My brother is 4. He could not have possibly forced me. My dad is actually against this, and if he watches this recording, anyway, my dad didn't want me to wear it to begin with. He didn't want my mom to wear it either, because I feel like, because of the way the media portrays it, like it's something like, oh yeah, men force women to do this. So my father doesn't want that when he goes outside, people look at him and it's like, oh my God, look at this man. He's forcing his daughter to wear this, he's forcing his wife to wear this. What kind of person is he? But that really isn't the case. This is something I do because of my own choice. I think it's something that strengthens my relationship with God, but that's what I personally believe. And of course, I'm not going to impose this belief on others, because just like I have the right to have my own beliefs, others have the right to have their own beliefs, and I don't expect others to impose their beliefs on me, and I will not impose my beliefs on them.
So you don't see other Muslim women that don't cover as lesser or anything?
No, of course not. I really don't think, I think it's unfair to judge how religious a person is just by what they wear, because I think that's something that lies within you, that's something that lies in your heart. Because there's a verse in the Quran that says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, that the best among you, the most noble amongst you, are the ones that are the most pious, the ones that are the most God conscious. And God consciousness is something that lies in your heart. And I believe someone mentioned this, that in the end, God looks at what's in your heart, right? Not how you look. God does not look at our appearance. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, all of you are from Adam, and Adam was from clay. So that kind of just shows that we're all the same. We all had humble beginnings. We're all from one man and one woman, and we're all the same in the eyes of God. And the only thing that differentiates us is not our skin color, not our gender, not our ethnicity, not our race. It's what lies deep down in our heart in terms of morals and values.
Can I ask a quick question before we get on the subject?
Okay.
Is it just the culture, or is it religion that you wear the scarf?
Well, I personally wear it for religion, because I mean, Islam says like to go out with modesty, and like, but my family doesn't. Like, I'm the only one in like my extended family who wears a scarf. My mom started when she was really late, so like we do it out of the religion. But I mean, some people might do it culturally, but like I personally do it religiously. But that doesn't mean that anyone who doesn't wear a scarf is not obeying the religion or anything like that. It's just like, it's my hijab, my choice kind of thing.
I do it because of religious purposes as well. I think it's become, religion has kind of like integrated with the culture, so now a lot of people treat it as a cultural practice. But again, like Hiba said, even in my extended family, no one wears the hijab or anything. So when I first went to India with the niqab on, I wasn't very welcomed. Let's just put it that way. So I get hate from my family. So my mom's side of the family was fine with it, but my dad's side of the family wasn't so much. But yeah, so I do it for religious reasons, and I'm from India, so like culturally, like we're the majority of Indians are Hindu, and they don't really have the headscarf concept and stuff.
So we've established that the vast majority of Muslims are good people, and it's just this small group that calls themselves Muslims that's doing all the terrorism. Why do you think more Americans don't know about this when there's this blanket statement that all Muslims are terrorists? Why does this exist?
Because this is the thing that the media, the news does. They use the minority to represent the majority. They will take this what was the number? 0.04% of Muslims and portray them as the majority of the Muslims out there. And so you're watching the news, and that's probably one of the only ways that you get your information, and you see like the only thing you see about Muslims is terrorism, ISIS, all this stuff. So like I believe that it's the fault of the news, CNN, Fox News, all these people, like it's for the fault of.
I also just wanted to add that Muslims are a minority in America, so the majority of Americans haven't really met an actual Muslim. So the only way they know about Islam and Muslims is through the news, and when all they hear is Islamic extremism, ISIS, and so the only like the only picture that they have of Islam is just this terroristic religion that just wants to kill everyone, and you know.
I know there's a lot of questions here, but I want to get to something.
The answer I'm looking for is, so if the media does this, then why does the media do this? Why? Why is this stigma going around? Why?
They may not know. But, yeah.
Well, for one thing, I had a history teacher who said that if you look at the history of America, there are times when like they hated on minorities, the Irish, the Italians, the Jewish, the African Americans, the Chinese Americans, and the Catholics. And now I guess now it's just time for the Muslims. So I mean, until looking at America's history, until another minority comes, I mean, we're gonna have to deal with it. That's how the news works, and it's just, I mean. Like, what can we really do, honestly?
I wanted to get to something more important here. Like, since you're all in college, how do students date you? Can
What's
students
that?
ask you out for a date?
Oh.
Do you want to go?
Well, okay. So, actually, it might come down, that's when you said, like, the level of, like, how practicing or whatever you are. I mean, I wouldn't, like, personally, and, like, I feel like if I'm wearing, like, I mean, if someone did ask, I mean, I have an answer prepared, but...
You probably have like an entire essay, right?
But
like, wait, let me fish out.
But so like it's like a personal thing. So I wouldn't go into that kind of thing. But there might be other Muslims who would, and that really comes down to an individualistic thing. How it's like every person's different, and that's kind of how it comes down.
What I'm
to.
getting into is arranged marriage.
Okay, well, for one thing, I know a lot right now in the Middle East, they are using arranged marriage, but this is a very un-Islamic practice. It says it in the Quran, and it says it in the Hadith that you cannot force a woman to marry a man who she doesn't want to marry. And in Islam, like, you say the whole I accept and whatever a woman does in a man, but even still they're forcing their child, and this is a completely un-Islamic practice. But I mean, you're like, I mean, even at the Prophet's time, they would like go to the girl the wali, is that what it is? And we have like a concept, like generally speaking, like we have a concept of wali, and you'll go, it's like a guardian, and you'll go and ask her, can I marry your sister? Can I marry your daughter or whatever? And it kind of comes from there. I mean, it's not like Islam says women can't talk to men or stuff like that. You can still, but like it places more limits than others.
Yeah. I just like to add that not just because arranged marriages don't necessarily mean forced marriages. First of all, second of all, there was actually an instance during the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where a woman came to him and told him, "I was forced to marry my husband," and he said that marriage does not exist because she obviously has to agree to marry the man. And going back to what Hiba said about the wali, that's the guardian, so it's usually the father or brother. So you ask, or it could be an uncle, you know, if her parents have passed away. So you usually ask them for the girl's hand in marriage, and then they will talk to the girl, and if she says no, she says no, like, that's it. So you're not allowed to force anyone into a marriage. And again, arranged marriages don't necessarily mean forced marriages. Some marriages, it's like the guy asks the father for his daughter's hand in marriage, and the girl agrees, and the father's like, okay, why don't you guys talk? And there's obviously someone present, like her father, her brother, or something of that sort. There's someone present when they're talking just to see how compatible they are, and then they decide whether or not they want to get married.
But
I would also like to add, you know, in terms of like dating, you know, as college students, I mean, it is stated that as Muslims we should even stay away, don't get close to fornication.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't just say that we shouldn't do fornication, we shouldn't even get close to it. That's why you see that, you know, it's not advised to spend a lot of time hanging out with women. You know, as students, as youth, we shouldn't, you know, hang out with them, flirt with them, you know, have extra, have superfluous, interactions with them. Obviously, we can interact with them, we talk to them, they are our peers, in school especially. But anything above that, if a guy is really serious about a woman, he's looking for a long-term relationship, there is a correct way to do it. There is a right way to do it. And in Islam, it doesn't mean that, you just jump right into it. There, the guy and the girl will get to know each other for a period of time. My brother and his wife, they were introduced through the family, but they had, like a long time, months and months where they just got to know each other, they would get to know each other, talk, and then eventually they both liked each other and they got married eventually. So there is a process to do it.
Yeah, okay, so you need to bring your parents to me, ask their parents first. We're out of time, and I know there's other questions. You can come up here and talk to them privately if you want. Muslim Student Association is open to outreach programs like this. I'm Micah Dashiki, Sociology Department, take Sociology. And thank you.
No, you're in. Especially when you've mentioned
They talk so much. I know.
Okay, I have to run to class.
Thank you for
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh my god, I screwed up when I mentioned, I tried to hold it and, okay, I tried not to say anything.
I can read Arabic. I am studying Arabic right now, but I cannot speak it. You don't need to know Arabic because it's more about belief, and that belief lies in your heart.
And then I'm like, okay, I do have my answer planned out.
Arabic is an easy language to say. Like, there is a lot of Arabic, but I can't speak it. So you can learn how to read, but if you really want to study, then you can study under a scholar. I would not suggest English translation, just because when you, like I mentioned, so like when you translate like Arabic into English, it's like completely messed up.